Okay, let's get this demo started. Before we examine the innards of the toolkit, allow me to point out a couple of things on this initial screen. First, this button with the question mark. You'll find buttons like this all through the toolkit. When you click the buttons, they will display information regarding the adjacent button or box. After you've read the information in the box, simply press the OK button to return. Most toolkit pages have this hide button that effectively minimizes the toolkit to allow access to applications running in the background. When you click the hide button, its label changes to show, and you will immediately be able to access all of the applications in the background. In this case, you're seeing the icons that were on my desktop when I created this demo. When you click the show button, it takes you back to the toolkit page. On most computer screens, the button does not appear to move as it changes from hide to show and back. However, on some computers, the two buttons seem to take a major leap when going from one to the other. If that happens on your computer, simply return to the opening page and double-click the revision date. This takes you to a page that connects to a website that indicates the aspect ratio of your screen. Simply select and copy the aspect ratio and paste it here. Then click the Continue button. Now the Hide and Show button will behave as intended when you go back and forth. When you click the Start button, it takes you to the sign-on page. We recommend that you use your first name and last initial to sign in, although you could use any name you choose. What happens next depends on whether you have the trial or a licensed version. If you have the trial version, the next screen looks like this, and the only thing you can do on this screen is to select the sample job labeled Ornithologist, which is based around the task associated with building a bluebird house. After you've purchased the response code and the toolkit on your machine has been licensed, you'll go to this screen, which will give you the opportunity to start a new job by clicking the New Job button, which we'll do now. First, enter the name of the job and then click the Create New from Scratch button. This adds the new job to the job list. For the remainder of this video, we're going back to the trial version screen, and we'll click the Ornithologist job. Select, click. This brings us to the main menu screen. To create a job task analysis, you will generally work your way down the left side of the screen. I'll give you a quick overview and then we'll look at the details. After entering the name of the job, your next step would be to enter any notes concerning the job and may even record the prerequisite knowledge, skills, and abilities required by the job. We'll see more about that in a few seconds. After the job, the duties that comprise the job. Generally speaking, all of the duties associated with the job should be defined before moving on to the tasks. In many cases, you can define the entire job using duties and tasks. However, if some or all of the tasks require defining subtasks, then that would come last. As you move among the various components, the toolkit lets you know where you are with this section, which always shows the current duty, task, and if applicable, the subtask. I'm going back to the job section to show you the details there. To edit the job, simply click the line, and that takes you to this screen where you can add notes that you feel applicable. If you need to record knowledge, skills, and either abilities or attitudes, you would click this button. Here's where you would record that information. All through the toolkit, you'll see this button, the Brainstorm button. When you click this button, it brings up 3 scratch pads. The 3 buttons allow you to move from one to the other. Information recorded on these scratch pads remain there until you erase them. Notes made on this screen are available later when you're working on duty and task areas. You can print any of the scratch pads. The Close button closes the brainstorm windows. When you're finished with this screen, you would click the Store Menu button and return to the main menu. Our next step will be to click Create or select Duty. This screen shows the duty we've already created for our birdhouse job. Here you can either select an already created duty or add a new duty. For now, we'll select the duty we've already created and go back to the menu. Notice that the duty we've selected is now the current duty, and it shows up here. Next, we'll edit that duty. The edit screen is identical to the screen that you'll see when you create a new duty, except the fields are blank. On this screen, you can change the wording of the duty or the information in the notes. If you make changes to this screen that you want to keep, click the Complete button. If you've made changes but change your mind and want to ignore those changes, click the Cancel Menu button. If you're just looking as we are, either button will take you back to the menu. Next, we'll look at tasks. These are the tasks that are already created. On this screen, you could add a new task, select a task and return to the menu, or select and edit a task. That's what we'll do now. This is the screen where you'll spend most of your time in the task analysis phase of your work. Here's where you will enter the task statement, the objective standards by which the performance of the task is measured, the conditions under which the task is performed, and any notes that you might want to add. Here's where you would indicate the difficulty associated with the performance of the task, the frequency that the task is performed, the probability of error without adequate training, and the consequence of failure to perform the task correctly. Notice that there are 3 Select from List buttons associated with the 3 text-oriented areas of the screen. Each button brings up a list of items that can be inserted in the text area with a mouse click. These lists can save a lot of valuable time. We'll take a closer look at one of these associated with conditions. When you click the button, it brings up this screen. If you were creating a new task, you could click on as many items in the list that apply to the task, and then click the Import button to bring those condition statements into the task. A significant feature associated with all 9 of the importable lists are that they can be customized. Lists that are customized for your company can save even more time. I'll show you more about that later in the demo. Here's a handy feature that can make life easier for you. The recommendations related to whether or not training is required, job aids, and retraining based on the difficulty, frequency, probability of error without training, and consequence of failure to perform correctly. In this case, with values of 3, 5, 3, and 2, training is recommended, but job aids and retraining are not. Now let's change those values and take another look. We'll change difficulty to very easy. We'll leave the frequency alone and change probability to not likely and consequence to negligible. And then click the Store and Refresh button. And the recommendations are now no for all 3. Now let's look at what happens when the difficulty, probability, and consequence values are greater and task performance becomes less frequent. We'll change difficulty to very difficult. We'll change the frequency to once every 5 to 12 months, probability to likely, and consequence to severe. And then click Store and Refresh. Now both training and job aids are recommended to support this task. Okay, one last change. We'll change probability to extremely likely and consequence to extremely severe. This could be for a task like cardiac pulmonary resuscitation or CPR. Now let's click Store and refresh. And there are the results. So where do these recommendations come from? I'll show you that in a minute or so. Okay, I'll set everything back the way it was and continue. The next area I want to show you is this one, which will say either transferred no or transferred yes. This is not an input area. It is a statement that tells you whether or not the task has been transferred to the instructional design database. One of the most significant features of the toolkit is its capability of moving task information over to another section referred to as the objective side of the house, where you can create instructional strategies based on the task analysis. Normally you will call for that transfer only after the task analysis has been completed and approved by all of the stakeholders. That information, once transferred, can be modified, and for that reason the toolkit does not allow a second transfer that could overlay legitimate changes made after the original transfer. This window lets you know the status of the transfer to objectives. These two windows are also associated with the transfer of task and subtask to objectives. Tasks and subtasks that are selected for training and complete can be transferred. Incomplete tasks and those not selected for training will not be transferred. When tasks and subtasks are created, select for training defaults to yes and complete defaults to no. You will need to manually change these two items when it's appropriate to facilitate the transfer. There's one last area to show you on this screen, and that's this button, Task Steps. I left it for the last because even though the toolkit supports it, I don't believe in articulating procedural tasks in training-related material. I believe that production should own and maintain procedural steps, and that training should refer to those steps. In any event, when you click the Task Steps, it takes you to this screen where you can list procedural steps for the task. We'll go back to the task screen by clicking either button and then return to the main menu by clicking either the Cancel or Store button. Before we leave the Tasks section, I'll show you how to resequence tasks. Start by clicking the Resequence Task button. This takes you to the screen that shows you the current sequence. To change the sequence, you merely need to change the numbers. For instance, let's say we wanted to move task number 5 to between 1 and 2. To do that, you would change the number 5 to any decimal number between 1 and 2, and then click the Resequence Redisplay button. That moves the task, but we still have the decimal, and the 5th task is labeled 4. To complete the process, click the Reconcile Decimal button, which puts the task in the order wanted. So much for that. I'll change the sequence back to the way it was, and we'll click the Cancel button to return to the main menu. That takes care of the left side. Now let's look at the functions on the right. The first 4 functions on the right allow changes to the descriptors associated with the items on the right side of the task screen. We'll look at the one for difficulty. This is one of 4 screens you can use if you need to change the wording of the descriptors. We'll click Cancel to return to the menu. Remember the recommendations on the task screen? Here's where you can view and change the algorithm that makes those recommendations. We'll click the Cancel and return to the menu. Next, we'll look at the Print Task Reports function. When you click this button, a window pops up asking whether you want to print a task report for all the tasks in the job or just the ones associated with the current duty. Since we only have one duty, it does not matter which one we choose. This screen allows you to select which task associated items to print. As soon as you make your selection and click the Create button, you will get this screen which tells you the name and location of the file and gives you the opportunity to view it with the application on your machine that normally opens RTF documents. The first part of the file name is the path of the file. All reports generated by the Toolkit go into the C:\print files folder. The first part of the file name itself is the name of the job, followed by letters that indicate what type of report this is. In the case of task reports, this next character indicates which duty the report addresses. A 0 indicates that the report addresses all duties. The next string of numbers indicates the date and time the report was generated. Here's how one page of that report looks. Okay, back to the menu. We'll come back to that second button in a minute or so, but for now we'll look at the Transfer Tasks to Objectives button. When you click the button, it takes you to this screen which explains again the transfer process and what will happen. With respect to transferring subtasks, there are two ways to do it. Subtask followed by the task, or the task followed by the subtask. The Toolkit can do it either way and gives you the choice on this screen. After the transfer, the Toolkit displays a confirmation screen and takes you back to the menu. Next, we'll look at the objective routines and utilities. When you click this button, it takes you to the menu screen. The right side displays the duties that have already been transferred, while the left has the functions available. Objectives and courses naturally go together, and there are two, maybe more, ways to do things. You can define all of the training objectives associated with the job you've just analyzed and then define the courses that are best suited for the objectives. Or you can define the courses first and assign the objectives to those courses. I guess it's a matter of which you think comes first. Personally, I prefer to determine the required objectives and their respective testing strategies and then define the courses necessary to deliver the required content and test performance. Okay, I'll put the soapbox away and let's display the objectives by job and duty. Whoa! We started with 5 tasks and 1 subtask, and now we've got 12 objectives. What gives? The answer is that the transfer operation gives the basic objectives based on tasks themselves. I have added 7 more. We'll look at one of them. We'll start at the top of the screen and work our way down. This top yellow section does 2 things. It indicates the task from which the objective is derived. It also indicates for the original task the difficulty, frequency, and consequence values. If this objective had been created as a result of a subtask, the subtask would be in the bottom part of the yellow section. Notice that all of the white sections have a gray Select from List button. These lists operate the same way as the one you saw when we were looking at the Tasks section. As you can see, there are 7 sections associated with each objective. The only mandatory one is the first one. All of the others are optional, but I strongly recommend them if you really want a good training program. The sections are the objective itself, the standards of performance, the conditions under which the objective will be tested, how are you planning to test the objective, how you intend to provide practice prior to testing, and how you intend to deliver the content to support the objective. The last section is the course to which the objective is assigned. You'll see more about course creation in a minute. By the way, this Notes section is a scratch pad similar to the Brainstorm pad in the Tasks section. For now, we're going to return to the Objectives menu. You have the ability to resequence objectives either by job and duty or within the course where they will be addressed. The resequence operation is virtually the same as it was for task, and we'll skip that for now. The next thing I want to show you is the print operation, at least the first screen. The Toolkit can print two types of reports on the objective side. The objectives for the current duty or instructional design documents for courses if you've defined and assigned objectives to them. Like the task report you saw earlier, you have the option on what information is included in the document created. You can investigate this further on your own. Again, for now we'll go back to the objectives menu. There's a couple more things I need to show you on the main menu. From here there are two ways to get back. The quit button and this one. We'll take a quick look at the course routines. This is the screen you'll get when you click on the Course Routines button. Here you can edit courses already defined, create courses, delete courses, and print either design documents or, in the case of structured OJT courses, you can print trainee and trainer manuals. Next, we'll look at a course description screen to get an idea of how that looks. First, the name of the course. Next is a course identification code. That code can be any characters you choose. In many companies, there's already an established convention for course codes. Next, there's a place for course description, and last, any notes that are considered applicable. Okay, back to the main menu one last time. This time to examine the screens associated with customizing the 9 Select From lists. To get there, click this button. Here you can do either of two things. You can edit or customize the list, or you can restore them to their original shipped content. We'll look at the edit function. The next thing would be to select the list to edit. For this demo, we'll look at the testing strategy list. There's the list, and you can modify it any way you see fit using the same techniques you would use if you were using Notepad. That's it. Well, we've covered a lot of ground, primarily because there's a lot that the Toolkit does. There are several things that you can use in the future for reference. First, many screens, such as this one, has a lot of text to guide you. Then there are those yellow question mark buttons throughout the Toolkit which gives additional help with specific items. Also, there's a comprehensive user guide in the same folder with the Toolkit program. And last, and I hope not least, you can contact me directly via the comment form on the website. Just be sure to include a telephone number, including extension number, and the best time for me to call you, and the time zone that you're in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you.